And here we are. First, we get a quick sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hope you guys can hear me. Without going into too much detail, I was watching. Oh, turn the volume on this. Still running about a 20-second lag. I was actually watching the first episode of a TV show called Wednesday, which is an Addams Family. It's the Addams Family. It's about Wednesday. I know a lot of you guys have seen it. Everybody said to watch it, so my wife and I watched an episode, but we got a little bit of a late start, so I ran in here and trying to get everything ready. By the way, the show's really funny. A lot of great dark humor. Anywho, hello everybody. Hope you guys are doing okay. And we have this special Sunday night episode because, we've normally been doing these on Saturdays because we got into our routine, but with what's coming up over the next few months in my world, I may hold these things a little intermittently, just in case, I don't know how my schedule is going to be the next few months, so they may not always be on Saturday nights. And, there is one thing I meant to do. Avert your eyes, I'm wearing short pants. Toro, I promised the family that I would hang out the red bandana when we're doing a live stream so they don't walk in and accidentally end up on camera. So there, that's the on-air sign here at Max's Models. Man, we're sophisticated. We wound up way busier than we were supposed to be today, so I didn't have a chance to coordinate with Ken or with Steve. I don't even know if they're out there. Hey, Trey. So, got a lot of cool stuff going on now. I almost finished with Westland Whirlwind that TD sent me, and I got so busy I didn't have a chance to download a picture. So I'm going to do. I took pictures, but I didn't have a chance to download them. So I'm going to do that right now because we're going to talk about airbrushes, spray guns, some gotchas in there. I'm sure a lot of you won't find anything particularly new about this. Some of you may. And I tried brush painting it, but as I had told you guys, I had the paints already thinned for the airbrush, and when I tried to brush paint it was just a catastrophe. I even put a couple of coats on, and I should have just waited because I was waiting for parts for the airbrush. Now we're going to also talk about this company Spray Gunner. They had all of the stuff I needed, and they even send you a card that says that your customer order was packed by Russell, and it asks what you did right and did wrong, if there's anything they think they should do. So, Russell got all my parts right. Anyway, let's go Livestream 85. Copy. Now let's see if I can bring this picture up now. So I got the spray gun fixed, and I'll talk about painting the model, and then we'll come back to talking about the spray gun. So I get the spray gun fixed, and it was leaking some air. It seems to be doing that again, but I taped off the model and painted the stuff you normally do, the masking, everything, and it looks a lot better now. I was able to cover up all the brush strokes and everything, but I should have just waited for the thing to begin with. But there's the way. It's not quite done yet, and you can still see I touched it up afterwards with a brush stroke, and of course it shows again. But this is a close up. But that's the little Westland links he sent me, and unfortunately I was trying to tape it up after I already had the model fully assembled, the props and everything. So it got to be a little tricky. You can see the rough edges. I used a good quality tape, but trying to first I reshot the green, then I taped off the green and reshot the gray, and there was still a little bit of seepage. But those decals for being 30 years old were surprisingly good, and I haven't got the guns in it yet. They're over there drying right now. They're probably dry now, but once I put the cannons on it, it'll pretty much be done. But the Airfix made a decent little kit there. This is the one that Tom Daniel sent me. I'm learning that I don't have the eyes or hands for 1/72nd scale feathering. uh, what I really going to have to do, if you want to feather this, you're probably going to have to use something like Play-Doh or curl the edge of your tape, but then give it an even feather that doesn't, hit and miss is a really true. 1/72nd scale is getting tougher and tougher to deal with. Anyway, it looks a little bit better when you back off just a little bit, like most of my models. I was disappointed to use the exact same paint to put the stripe on the port wing to touch up that area as it come out of the spray gun, but it still seems to have a brighter color. Now, it may not have been done hardening when I did that, so it could still be gassing out. I got it right here. Hold on. Just going to bring it over here. And, of course, this camera on the computer's not very good, but... Okay. But here's the model. And... like I say, I just got to put the guns on it and it'll be done. But interesting subject matter and not a bad little kit at all. It's looking a little bit better now that it's had a chance to gas out more. I'm not seeing that discoloration. There's a hint of it, but you really got to get it up under the light to see it. And this is kind of a quick build because I want to have it done for the show tonight. And all I have to do is put the guns on it and she'll go on the shelf. And so that's an interesting little airplane. So let's see. Hey Garfield, Teflon tape. Oh, yeah. I need to get. I actually had some of that Teflon tape. I need to get some more. I don't know. A few things. Here's a shock. A few things got lost in the move. I know that never happens. Now, there have been some developments. We had the contractor out there who's going to insulate and sheetrock the Tardis 2. That's going to be a pretty penny, but that's the way it goes. They'll probably get rolling on that. Electricity's supposed to get hooked up on Friday. If all goes well, I'll have everything but the floor done before I go to training, so it'll all be set up just in time for me not to be able to use it. But, it'll be waiting on me when I get back. So... talking about the airbrushes. Okay, this company's Spray Gunner. Let me tell you a little story. I kind of touched on this in my video. I had lost the push button trigger and I needed a new needle. So I go to Badger. I go to their click down, pull down menu, parts for sale. The parts weren't there. It says contact these people. I click on it, go to some aftermarket company, some other, it may be part of the Badger company, but it was a different operation. And they just didn't have the parts. They just didn't have them. I guess the 105 is becoming a passe little air gun or airbrush. But so 5 seconds on Google and you find a bunch of companies. I had bought stuff from Spray Gunner before, so I decided to give them another shot. And it went good last time, but this time the same thing. Even with the holiday rush and everything, they got it to me quickly, and they got the Russell got the parts right. So chalk one up for Spray Gunner, and that is one word, and I believe it's just spraygunner.com. Yeah, sales at spraygunner.com, Facebook, Instagram. And if you want to call them, questions regarding your purchase, 813-336-4201. I'm sure they're plenty of contact information. It was real easy. And boy, you can tell I didn't have anything set up because I didn't have a chance. I got junk all over the floor over here and everything. And it's just really starting to look like a workshop. Hey, I spilt my first bit of paint here today, but it stayed on the desk. So anywho, the spray gun's operational. It's working good. Now the air leak was... when I say air leak, when I would turn the air on, air would start coming out the nozzle. I had everything tight. The needle was set all the way. Let me grab that. I'll grab a picture real quick. And this one I already have in here. So, of course, I moved all my files around with the. Let's see, 2022 completed. No, that was 2023. That was today. Oh no, that'll be today. There it is. Okay. Open this bad boy. All right, here we go. Here's the Badger 105 Patriot. You see these two arrows down at the bottom. as many of you are aware, this assembly goes up inside that little piece that screws into the bottom. And the very bottom piece there, the nut that goes on the bottom that holds the spring in place, that pushes the needle valve in place, had gotten loose. I don't know how, but it just gotten loose. And when I dropped them, thank goodness, they fell right between my feet, and I saw them go and was able to pick them right up, because typical teeny little part. One little thing I think I might do in the future is keep a large plastic bag in here, so when I have to take stuff like this apart, I can put it in a plastic bag with both hands and do it, so something springs away, it just drops in the bag. Or wear my apron with the bottom of the apron clipped to the table. So stuff doesn't go to the floor. Something like a shot trap, you got to have like a sump for things to fall into. But anywho, once I tighten that up, the air would stop when I let up on the trigger. But when I used it later today, I was still getting a little bit of seepage, so I think that thing may be loosening up again. I hate taking those little bitty parts apart, because it's like watch springs, they want to get away from you. And so there's different ways to get different levels of feathering, and I know you can put different tips on them and different needles, but and you can turn the pressure down, but it's when you're dealing 1/72 scale, I'm finding it's really hard to trick out an airbrush where you don't have in other words, you're going to have to mask it. I see some of these guys freehanding it like Plasma and the others, and I don't know how they have it set up, but mine just seems to get too much of a splatter pattern. And I'm back to taping it off, and I got a bunch of pictures here on the phone of the little Westland here all taped off, but you guys know what that looked like. So there was that. And one of the glue troopers sent me some pictures today of a model car, and let me go see if I can find that. I don't think I had a chance to download them, but he had primed it and painted it, and the hood and the hood and the body wound up being two different colors. And what he came to realize was that he had he was using AK paints, and basically the two different primers resulted in two different colors of the car, even though he was using the same paint. Now, in the past, I had tried to no, here we go. Let me just, Bill, I hope you don't mind me sharing this. Let's see, save image as, save. Okay, let me grab that real quick. And I'm sure this has happened to all of us at some point. There it is. Okay. Now you will notice this is the same paint, but there's a very distinct tonal difference in the hood and the body. And he chalked it up to you having used a different primer on each one. Obviously, one primer was darker. And I've had this problem occur and put as many as 3 coats on a model and still couldn't get the paints to match. It really cheesed me off. And so he wound up stripping it all off and starting over again from scratch. And for a lot of people, they don't really notice that. But for this, for the more particular modeler, you're going to notice that two-tone difference. It just isn't going to fly. And let's see. Now, what he did was, he got right here. Okay, so he used the stripper. Let's see. He stripped the hood off using AK paint thinner, and he hadn't used it before. He had originally bought it to thin the AK and Vallejo paints for his airbrush. And now I normally use Tamiya thinner, which is what he normally uses. But he said that the AK paint turned into a thick, gooey mess using those liquids. So obviously not everything cleans everything. And but when he used the AK paint thinner, he got good results. In fact, let me go ahead and download this picture. Sorry guys, normally I have this stuff set up ahead of time, but Okay, and I have to jump a couple of screens here to do it. Okay, so once he stripped it using the AK, it came out looking like, okay, where's the picture? Did it not save? Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Yeah, you won't find the file no matter how many times you download it if you go to the wrong place. There it is. Okay. Now this was using the AK paint stripper, and that looks like it did a pretty efficient job. So he was just showing what he could do here. I mean, he stripped the whole thing and repainted it. And according to his email, and he tested it on some sprue first. It didn't eat or soften the plastic. And he says I used it on the hood, and after a couple of swipes with the brush, waiting about 10 seconds, and the paint and primer were able to remove the paper towel. Third coat was painted on to release a couple of places where it built up. I have to do very little re-prep to the surface, so there's something, that's really good to know. I have not used I've only used AK products a little bit. From what I've seen, they're really good. I might have to look at switching over to that because although I love the Tamiya acrylics and everything, you got to thin them just right and everything to get them go through the spray gun. Now, some of these paints, like Mr. Color and some of the others, I think are made for the spray gun from the get-go. So I really got to broaden my horizons a little bit. I'm like a lot of people. I get so used to doing things a certain way, better ways come out, and I don't engage in it. And that's no reason other than pure laziness on my part. Let's see. I'll take a second to read some comments. Let's see who's out here. So, splatter usually means the paint is too thick, or the pressure is too low, or the paint is sticking to the needle tip. Or maybe the pressure's good, so it's probably the paint is, might still be a little bit thick. One thing I have lost temporarily, I'll buy a new one if I have to, is my paint mixer, my little handheld mixer that it's got to be around here somewhere. I couldn't find it at the old house in the Tardis, the shed, and I can't find it here. And I'm pretty sure we've opened every box, but things find a way. It's like the cat, it finds places to hide where you're never going to find it. So, hey, John, Happy New Year to you, too. And if I didn't say it, guys, Happy New Year's to everybody. And we're kicking off 2023, going to hit the ground running. When I finish this little Westland, I'm going to take a picture, send it to TD. Got one of them built. I find myself in a bit of paralysis, you guys, not only because we're going to be moving into this office is actually a nice place to work, but again, it's just amazing how fast you run out of space. I can't wait to get moved into the Tardis 2.0. Get things spread out, get some dedicated stations set up so I'm not moving stuff around. I'll still be building in here. And fortunately, the paint booth is right by the window. Now, spray paint story for you. Remember, I live in Florida. And last night, when I was first spraying the green on the little Westland here, I just opened up the window and turned on the paint booth and let it just vent straight outside. No problem. I'm spray painting and it's dark outside. And of course, fireworks are going off because it's the New Year's. And I hear a really loud hoot of an owl. And yes, we have lots of owls and large predatory fowl and birds down here in Florida. And it starts talking to another owl. They're going back and forth. And I realize I'm sitting here with this massive open window and all these lights turned on. And sometimes animals like that are attracted to the light. And I'm thinking in my mind, I can just see one of those things flying into the window and, or the cat getting in here and, going out the door or something, going out the window, or the owl coming in, I can see myself on the news with my face bandaged up, so tell us, Mr. Concubine. Well, I was working on my models with the window open, and all of a sudden this giant owl came in and attacked me, and it ate the cat. Only in Florida kind of story. But I was like, there's a model story you don't hear every day. I was painting my models when I was attacked by an owl. And people joke, owls are not hooty hoot little birds. They are large predatory creatures with gigantic talons. And they'll snatch up a small dog in a heartbeat. Okay. Steve's with us, so I think it's time to chime in. Like I say, I did all this on the fly. Got distracted watching Wednesday and with the TV show, which, by the way, personally I found quite funny. I think, given that a lot of us have that kind of sense of humor, if you guys haven't seen it, I think you might enjoy it. Steve also got me to watched a little bit of You're the Worst. That's a pretty funny series. I was just watching clips on YouTube. Yeah. All right, turn the Bluetooth on here. Give the great cogitator a second to figure it out. 3, 2, 1.
Enterprise, Spock here.
Connected.
Enterprise, Spock here.
Okay. That's contacts.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys. Steve's Model Mania is with us.
I hope everybody got a chance to see your 2022 recap.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
Oh, you didn't like it?
No, I did. That was fun to put together. Unfortunately,
I thought it was really nice. I mean, you had Mike, and you had Ken, and you had Jim, Keeler.
I was looking for a picture of you, and I couldn't find one.
Well, I was going to say, I felt like the world's a tuxedo, and I'm a pair of brown shoes here watching the thing.
What happened was, after I got done, I realized, oh crap, I don't have a picture of Steve, and I couldn't find one. And after I had the thing, I was like, oh wait a minute, I should have gone to the Dezerland photos.
Dezerland.
And I'm like, good move, Max. But
that's all right. Out of sight, out of mind. I get it.
We under now you understand the pecking order.
Yeah, I know. You had dead guys on there. I didn't get on.
But actually, that was I had to. I don't even know where I put the Dezerland photos. I can't find them. I know I got them in this computer somewhere. Sadly, I am having to do a memorial tribute for a relative that just passed, who was only 2 years older than me. So, coming and doing one on the for the end of year closeout was good for my spirit to get away from that. And it's kind. I'm sitting here scrolling like, where did I put the Dezerland photo? It should be under trips, I would have thought. You know what? Maybe I hit it under Max's models. Completed.
Don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. I had this really great system for organizing stuff. I put it where it's so safe. No, I make sure it's put away so safe that not even I can find it.
There you go.
Well, I thought it'd be under completed videos, but it's not.
So you're going to continue to build in the office, even though you got the Tardis too.
Well, now that I've had this much trouble building this one little model, and I've got so much stuff on my plate right now, probably not, because like I say, the electrician comes on is supposed to come on the 5th, and hopefully the sheetrock guy will be right after him, or maybe even somewhat before him. But the only thing left to be then will be the floor, and we're gonna go. That's not gonna be anything fancy, but and then I'll get everything moved in. There it is. Of course, it was, there. I should have known it would be there. Now the question is, do I even have any pictures of you in all this? Well, you and I were sitting there chatting, taking pictures of everything, but I don't recall actually taking pictures of each other. You took a picture of me. there I am. Yeah. Oh, here you are. Gotcha. There you go.
But anyway, wasn't the whole purpose of having the Tardis to be able to, do everything in the one space?
Yes, and it is. But what I'm thinking, what I say, I'm probably going to build it here. There you go. I have to wait and see how to get it set up, because I have my desk that I'm sitting at right now, and then I have the one behind me, which is where he used to reload ammunition. And so it's a good solid work desk, but at the same time, I got so many other projects going on. I'll bet you all the models do stay out in the shed, and I'll probably. I think
Monica would probably like it better that way.
Yeah, well, all the stinky stuff's going out, the paints and the glues and everything. So yeah, you know what? I might use this table. Ooh, no, again, that's what the Tardis is for. I was gonna say the whole idea behind the Tardis. I'm gonna set up a semi-permanent set in there, so I can do like unboxings and things like that. In a more up the production value here. Hint. As anyone knows, one thing you can never have too much of is desk space. So I'm sure I'll find something to do with it.
Oh.
And anywho, so
where's Ken?
I actually have. I hadn't seen him in the comment section. I didn't know if he was. Let me call real quick. Let's see if he
responds.
If he responds, worst thing he can do is not answer.
Well, if his wife's there, maybe not.
I don't know. And we're ringing.
Hey, Max.
Hey, let me merge the call. I'm with Steve. We're live on the interweb.
Ken,
you there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Band's back together.
Well,
we're doing it?
Where you were.
We didn't know where you were.
We're on.
You know this is Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just seeing if you could dance with the changes. Yeah, we since last night was New Year's. You see, this is how I check up. Ken hasn't been watching my videos because I made a video today saying we were going to do this tonight. That was a test, Ken. You didn't score so well.
Well, I saw your one where you did the review of 2020 too.
Yes.
Yeah, how'd you like that? Everybody in the world, including dead guys, got in it but me.
That's right.
You were, really? I thought I saw your picture in there.
I couldn't find the pictures. I lost track of the Dezerland photos, but now I found them.
You, Keeler, everybody, not me. No, it's okay.
So next time we get together, Steve, we're going to take some more pictures of you, because I have like two.
Okay.
I think even the Dezerland thing, I only have two photos of you, and one of them's a sister to this photo.
Right. Staring at the straight 8 on the Chrysler Airflow.
On the Chrysler Airflow, that's right. Man, you know your cars. I'll give you that. I got to admit, I think one of the cars I was the most impressed with was the LaSalle. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, because he talked it up a lot.
Well, that's true. That's true. And they are pretty rare. I think it also stuck because, Archie Bunker and Edith, our old LaSalle ran great.
Yeah.
But you that other car you really liked was it the Nash?
Yeah, that 54 Nash was just, I love that car.
And I thought it was a neat car. Here's
the famous Nash seats.
There's the other photo. You're just sort of, you're really admiring that motor. It'll be up here on the screen in just a second. But I gotta admit though, Desert's got a lot of cool stuff in that place.
Well, meanwhile, you didn't even see the cars that are not displayed.
Well, you were saying he buys them, and I mean, he I don't know, like these groups go out of business or whatever, and he just buys the whole lot.
Yeah, he buys them, or he goes on eBay. He gets a thing in his bee in his bonnet. Oh, I got to get some Thunderbirds. Goes on eBay and just start looking at Thunderbirds and buying them. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, man's got to have a passion.
He's got some really nice stuff. He really does. I mean, I would suggest to any of the glue troopers who were in the Orlando area, if they got some spare time, to go check it out.
And Trey and Fran, you guys live down there, so you can, But and the thing is, you can see a lot of it for free. You only have to pay to get into some of the stuff.
Right. It's true. Ken would have liked that pinball.
Yeah,
pinball
Kenny's got a lot of pinball
section.
machines that's just out in the hallway. Although I think you actually have to drop a quarter in them.
They're $4 a game.
What?
Well,
Ask me how I know.
At
somehow
Dezerland?
I know how you know. Just think, if you play 40 or 50 or 100 games, you could buy your own pinball machine.
Which he did.
Well, the one that I was interested in was the latest
There's
Star
the
Trek
Nash.
machine,
Yeah.
and it goes for about $7,000.
Now, first question, Steve. To your
Yeah.
knowledge, does anybody make a kit of this car?
No.
Okay.
Uh-uh.
Well, you see, so there are cars out there yet to be kitted, so there's still a market. Now,
Yeah, but I'm probably the only guy who would buy it.
well, talk about the car and what you love about it.
I just love the design for the time. It had a lot of interesting and unique features, like where the gas cap was hidden behind the taillights, which, some of the GM cars had. And, I mean, look at the wheels. I mean, half the wheel is covered by the fender.
Yeah.
It's just a neat car of the era. I like the color, too. I mean, it's very 50s.
Yeah, I guess you call that a turquoise.
Yeah, turquoise and white.
Well,
It's kind of a neat car for the era,
Well,
I love the little feelers for the curve.
We could use those. My wife could use those.
Some of you guys may remember we actually did the live stream from down there, and
Ricky Wolf says it's bloody awful.
Oh, come on.
hey, everybody's got their
Superman, Ricky.
Everybody's got what their love, and I'm gonna it'll remember we're talking on the phone, so we get it before everybody else does. The other picture I was gonna pop up here for you to talk about is that ridiculous limo.
Oh, wait a minute, William Wagner, the Oldsmobile Cutlass station wagon '72 was the car that was used in the '70s show. I had one of those.
Oh Lord!
Just a cruiser roof.
Okay.
Yes.
And there it is, the world's longest limo.
And like I mean, I've seen freight trains that could corner better than that thing.
Absolutely. It's articulated in the middle.
When I first saw it, like in magazines, I thought it was Photoshop. I didn't even think it was real.
Oh, yeah. No, and you saw it, and it's got the helipad on the back.
Yeah, get the helipad on the back, yeah. I don't know how many model Eldorados you'd have to cut up to kit bash that, but...
A lot. Well, the front, when they redid the car, the whole front of it that you see there, they got another donor Eldorado that was a runner because it wasn't running at the time, and they just grafted it onto the front.
Ah.
How many engines does this thing have?
No, it's got one. It's got one. Mike did it, Max.
Oh, Mike did it? Okay.
Yeah, Mike had the car behind the AutoZine in Long Island. And then when they moved the AutoZine down here, he cut a deal with Dezer, and they brought the car down there. He sold it to him, and then he redid it down there.
Okay.
How would you transport something like that?
In pieces.
Yeah. Well.
You put it on a couple of flatbed trucks.
Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of it?
You didn't drive it, Ken.
Well, as long as you're going down a dark desert highway, cool wind in your hair in a straight line, that car would be pretty cool as a party wagon, as everyone's pointing out.
Absolutely, but not if you had to go around a turn.
Now, we've checked it.
I wanted to know if it has a tiller.
Well, since you guys, we're talking about oddball cars, okay, here's one I want to talk about real quick. Again, I got to give it you guys got to give it a second to pop up. It's the Monkeys Mobile. And I wanted to pick your brain about this one because this is not an original. I don't believe.
No, it's not. Because it's got a white interior.
White
and
interior,
top.
not the cream interior.
The top has, it's supposed to have a beige interior and a beige top.
Right. Now, I think we talked to your friend over at the AutoZine. I forget if we talked to him about this or not, but I know I heard the builder of the car talk about it. The late, oh God, brain fart.
It was Gene Winfield.
Gene Winfield. Dang, man, I hate that. Who, wait, Gene Win, oh wait, wasn't Jeffries made this? It was Winfield?
Oh, no, it was Jeffries. Yeah,
Jeffries.
It was Jeffries.
Okay.
I get the two Genes confused.
Yeah. Now, as cool as this car, you guys know it's my favorite Hollywood car just because as a little kid, I love the monkeys. I love that car from way back when. But it's actually, apparently, as I understand it, because it's based on a GTO, it's not one of the harder cars to recreate for someone who knows how to do that sort of stuff.
Not at all.
And so, talk us through it. I buy you a GTO and say, okay, you're the car bash guy. What are you going to do to a regular GTO convertible to make that out of it?
You're going to cut the trunk out of it,
mm-hmm.
because that's where the rear seats are,
mm-hmm.
in the back. You're going to make a custom top for it, and then what you're going to do is you're going to make the nose piece and a different hood. But other than that, the car is pretty standard GTO underneath.
Now, the front end of that thing was,
Yep.
I think that was pounded aluminum, wasn't
it? When he did it, it was. There have been copies that did fiberglass copies because they made a mold off of the front, and then there was one guy who put the nose on one of the copies that was made out of styrofoam.
Oh, I remember he telling me about that. He shaved it down and then just coated it.
Just primed it and painted it, and it looked good until somebody touched it.
Ricky's talking about Ed Straker's car from UFO, which they don't have there. But I found out that car, I think, was based on a Ford Granada.
Yeah, which was the English Ford Granada.
Yeah.
Not the U.S. one.
Oh, so it wasn't the American sedan.
No, it wasn't in the American car. No.
Okay, so, but I got to admit, although highly impractical, and according to Straker, the doors didn't work. There was always a guy off camera holding the door open.
Well, yeah, most of the cars, like the Brooklyn, I mean, that was one of the main sticking points of the car was that the hydraulics would always fail. They'd spring a leak, and then they couldn't get out of the car. Which the DeLorean has that problem, but that's because they have a problem with the latches because the doors are manually operated on a DeLorean. But in the Brooklyn, you push the button and the door opens.
Well, if we're going to talk about Hollywood imposter cars, then the next one we have to talk about, of course, let's fit the screen here, is the infamous fake Miami Vice Daytona Spider. And I assume that Deezer's is a fake.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. It's a Corvette with a fiberglass body to look like a. I mean, they only made, I think they made like 21 of them, real ones. There
probably been more knockoffs made.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There actually are more knockoffs made of the original ones, but it's Corvette.
So that's an easy one to clone because you're just swapping out.
Yeah, all you're just plopping the body on there.
Somebody,
like the one next to it.
Oh, the Mach 5, yeah.
Yeah.
There he goes.
That's a Corvette too.
We know. Max and I saw that car a long time ago.
No, we saw a different one, Ken.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure. Desert's had that one a while, I think. They like the Spider. There've been a lot of knockoffs made. And the thing is that anybody wants to do it because kit models are made of most of these things. You can just get it, use that as your platform. If you can't, but I imagine you can source the parts pretty easily.
Well, I mean, there was two tells on the car in Miami Vice. Number one was when he would start the car, and then they would go to pull away. He would put it in gear, and you'd see the car kind of go down because it was an automatic. Didn't make any automatic Daytona Spiders or any automatic Daytonas. Also, the mirrors and the door handles were off. So that was the dead give. And if you looked at the dashboard, because they very rarely showed you a shot of the dashboard, you could see it was the dashboard of a Corvette.
Okay.
The company that made these was in Florida. They were in North Miami, and they got sued by Ferrari, and they had to stop making them. And so Ferrari went after the show, and they wanted the car, to be taken off the show. So they struck a deal with them that they would blow up the car, which they did on the episode, and Ferrari gave them Testarossa.
Like you do.
Yeah.
Well,
now, the Testarossas that they had in the show, there was one that was what you call the hero car, that you just drove around and looked good.
Uh-huh.
The other ones were Di Tommaso Panteras underneath that they put a body on.
Huh.
So
Well, that's not a cheap
jumps.
Well, a Pantera is a fairly rare car in its own right. I mean, it's, not like a cheap throwaway car.
It wasn't as expensive as Testarossa.
Oh, no.
But I had a friend of mine who had a Pantera.
No. Elvis had a Pantera.
He shot my friend.
I always thought the Panteras were cool.
Elvis shot his. It wouldn't start. He pulled out his gun and shot the car.
Well, the other one the other car before we go on to other things that because I know you happen to have a personal affiliation with.
There it is
Dragula. So I'll let you tell the story on that.
That's the Dragula that they made for the Munster Go Home movie, not the one from the TV show. And the reason that car was made for the movie, and it's different than the one on the TV show, is because, as you can see, it's longer. Because Fred Gwynn had to race the car in Munster Go Home, and he couldn't fit in the original Dragula. So this car is significantly longer than the original Dragula, and this is the one they made for the movie. Now, I don't know if you have the picture behind it, which is the Munster coach.
I think I do.
That's the original one from the show.
I believe I do. Let me look real... Okay, what? Try that again. Something went south there. Image. Okay. Browse.
So is this car actually drivable?
Yeah.
Oh, they drove it in the movie.
Yeah, they drove it in the movie, under, sort of restricted conditions. Not something you could take to Sonic for some burgers, okay?
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a full photo of it because the structure of the cars and the structure of the building were in the way. But I did get a picture of the Munster coach. And
that's
but you couldn't get there quickly.
Yes, you could. That's the original car. That's the one that Barris built, which TD designed.
That's right.
And never got credit for.
He designed both of them.
But that's the car that was the original one that was in the TV show. And there's a zillion copies of them.
Yeah. It says a lot about the impact of television as a medium. When here it is 50, 60 years later, most of us can still recognize it. I mean, it's still part of the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the guys at AMT or whoever were thrilled to, you want, how many parts has this thing got?
It doesn't have a lot of parts. It's a pretty simple kit. I mean, the paint work on it is worse than putting the model together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you see like those gold stripes on the rear fender?
Uh-huh.
Well, there's stripes on all four of the fenders, and they're raised. So if you want to do them, you got to paint them. That takes, and then there's, in the front piece, there's a square. And then you got to paint the interior because the thing comes molded in black. You got to paint the curtain. It's a lot of paint work.
Ooh.
And it's not spray paint work. It's mostly brush paint work.
Okay.
Oh. But there's not a lot of parts to the kit.
Huh.
And there's not a lot of parts to the Dragula kit either.
Stuart just said something I was thinking. This is really weird. Has anyone done the Beverly Hillbillies truck? And where is the original truck?
MPC did a kit of the Beverly Hillbillies truck, and the original one, which there was only one, I think is out in California in a museum someplace.
Yeah, what was that, an Oldsmobile or something? I forget what it was.
Yeah, something, yeah. But they did do a model of it, believe it or not.
I've seen kit bashes of it. I don't know if I've ever seen the kit. That would actually, because they hung so much junk on it, that would actually.
Yeah.
And the other nice thing about Dezerland, he has more than although it's mostly cars, he has a lot more than that. And,
he's got a whole bunch of military vehicles, which you spent some time looking at.
Yeah, a lot of Jeeps and stuff, and he's got a tank, and I don't know if that's actually the tank that they use in the James Bond movie. Here's a picture of the front of it, and it, they say that was the one from GoldenEye.
That's what they say.
And but I saw an interview with a Brit who was provided the armor for that movie, and apparently they had several tanks that they did some other stuff with. The one thing he said you'll notice is they have Pierce Brosnan sticking his head up out of the hatch, and he goes, everyone who's a treadhead will know right out the bat he's not driving because he's on the wrong side.
Wrong side, right.
And
it should be where that window is in the picture that you're showing.
Exactly. And but who cares? It's a Bond flick. You don't go to those for technical detail.
Well, I mean,
so which Russian truck was? Which Russian tank was it?
I think it was a T-55, if I remember. It could have been a 62. But
wow! Oh yeah, those are really old.
But
well,
I don't know. I think they're still using some of them in Ukraine.
Yeah, they took some of them out of storage.
I will wager you that this tank sitting in the museum is in better mechanical shape than half of them the Russians fielded.
Probably.
Well, that's if you're going to believe, and I don't really believe anything I see in the media because they're all just reading what they're told from these various countries. But supposedly the Russian armor was in such bad shape that it broke down or ran out of gas or whatever. But the Ukrainians, because they used the exact same equipment, immediately went out, fixed them, and they have now filled the ranks.
Second largest armored
they have now filled the ranks of their own military with stuff the Russians left behind, and they were able to they actually had the parts to fix it. And from what little I know of Russian logistics, that would not shock me to learn that that's actually true.
I read an article about something kind of funny. The Russians were stealing farm equipment, the combines and stuff like that, and taking them back to Russia. So the farmers are going, okay, fine. So they took their tractors out and they were stealing tanks.
Yeah, there's the famous photo of the tractor towing a tank that was out of gas. And his military vehicle collection is respectable, but it's nothing compared to his car collection. And
no, car collection. He's got that car from that League of Extraordinary Gentlemen too.
Oh, I call it the automobile.
Yeah, oh man, that thing was just like, really?
I know I've got a picture. That may be the first thing I photographed. Oh, there it is. It is literally the first photograph I took. It's right out front where you can see it, and I personally think the thing is cool.
Hey. Craig Swain just said something interesting. The original Beverly Hillbillies truck is in Missouri, College of the Ozarks campus.
Oh, okay.
That's probably a good place for it.
Of course, they think it's just another used car.
Chili Billy said he saw them all the time in his hometown.
Listen.
And then as you see in the background of this picture, we have the FAB1 from Thunderbirds.
Yes. Oh, yes. I've got a couple of pictures of Miss Penelope's car. You want to explain that?
These are the ones that I saw. They were sitting right out in the middle of the whole place.
Yes.
These are the ones where you first walk in.
Yeah, there's a Dodge car off to the right, and to the right of that is a pizza place where we had pizza.
Oh, okay.
Well, there you go. Did you have pizza in the Dodge?
No, they wouldn't let us do that.
There's FAB1.
Well, did you ever go to Disney World and go to the Sci-Fi drive-in?
No.
I haven't been to Disney World in a really long time.
They have it's like a restaurant, and it's built like a drive-in theater. It has, picket fence, got a screen, and it has fiberglass cars that have tables in them. And where the food comes from in the back looks just like the place you would get food in a drive-in. And it plays a totally never-ending clip of coming attractions from all of the sci-fi movies from the 50s.
I love it. Now you cannot
incredibly cool.
You cannot even pretend to say that you have a big automobile collection unless you have a couple of Batmobiles, and but none of his are originals.
Yes. This is the Batcave.
The Batcave. You know, what do you think they made the Futura Batmobile? What that replica? What do you think they made it out of?
Oh, the original one was made out. It was steel.
No. I mean, the original was the Futura that Barris had.
Right.
But the copies.
Oh, you mean the copies?
Well, what kind of car do they use to make the copies out of?
Well, the first 5 or 6 copies they made out of 66 Galaxy 500s. And they cut the frame and extended the frame 11 inches. That I know because I've seen the pictures.
Okay.
The newer ones they make off of Lincoln town cars.
Okay. Are you guys familiar with the big lawsuit over the Batmobile? The guy who makes them, and they're not cheap. They're like a couple of $100,000.
They start at $125 and they go to $250.
Yeah. Are you familiar
depending upon what you want in it?
Are you familiar with the
brakes?
With the big lawsuit that made the national news over the guy in California who his wasn't ready when he wanted it? And I don't know if you're, but it was really bad because this guy put down a big deposit and he got in line and got in the queue to have his Batmobile by the apparently the only company that's licensed to make quote unquote authorized copies.
Yeah, they have the license.
Right. And when I can't remember the name of the place. What happened
was the guy ran out of money somewhere along the way.
Right. So he goes to
told them they had to stop. So what they did was they took the car out of the
queue
where it was and put it at the back of the line.
Right.
So then the guy came back to him like 6 months or a year later.
Because now he's money up.
Car. And they said, well, now you have to wait because we've got 12 and yours is 12th. Mm-hmm. And so then that's where the lawsuit came from.
But it got worse because, and this is something, and you guys may or not know this, but I did a brief stint as a police officer up in Virginia, about 1.5 years, and you learn a lot of things about what the police can and cannot do. And if you want to get in trouble real fast as a police officer or chief constable, try doing something outside your jurisdiction, because you've never met anyone more territorial than a law enforcement officer. Okay, whether it's his county or city or piece of road or whatever. And which is one of the reasons you always have the friction, like when the FBI shows up and the local sheriff's like, oh, fuck you, Oops, did I say? Sorry. Try not to use that kind of language on the live streams. But anyway, so that kind of turfism's a real deal. So apparently this guy who didn't get his Batmobile decided to go to a local sheriff to whom he was a substantial donor. The sheriff had already lost re-election and was a lame duck. But he said, I think this guy is conning me, and all this other stuff. So he sent 4 sheriff's deputies, one of whom I think was a lieutenant, all the way across the country to Missouri or wherever it was this guy makes these things. Ohio. Now, they did have warrants, and they did go to the local police. So we have this warrant, So the local cops with these California sheriff's deputies in tow all go over to the guy's place. They managed to get a judge to freeze his accounts, and they really abused. Now, the 4 deputies that went out there probably thought this was kosher. This sounds more like they got a bum steer from a sheriff who was doing his old buddy a favor. But they, the poor guy who was a law-abiding, tax-paying, church-going. This is as legit an operator as you can find.
It was a legitimate business.
All above board, all licensed. But they wound up freezing his accounts and doing all this other stuff in another state. And that was, the local police were like, well, they've got legitimate warrants and all this other stuff. And at one point, I think they were even trying to extradite him, but I don't think he personally ever had to go to California. He managed to get lawyers to handle it. But you can imagine how much that cost. Well,
Yeah.
when this got in front of a judge, outside of the sheriff's hands, and they started putting the pieces together, the courts rapidly, by court standards, it's still talking weeks or months, decided that, this was completely bogus. And when the whole matter was known, then the news media, and because it got media attention because it involved the Batmobile. I don't care what you're doing. If you involve a Batmobile, it will get attention. I think it's a fair thing to say. Okay. There are three things that you can do to anything that will make it better. Add bacon, have a picture of Godzilla, or make it about the Batmobile. Those three things are guaranteed to make something more interesting. And so anyway, this wound up all over the national news. All of a sudden, this outgoing sheriff decided it would be a real good time to go on vacation. And he ghosted his own department. So he left the undersheriff and the PR people to handle the onslaught of media. And the guy who had filed this BS claim to begin with just reeked of Mr. I've got money, I'm privileged, I get what I want right now, beat the Joneses. And I mean, needless to say, our Batmobile maker was completely vindicated. You okay there?
Somebody's beating Max up.
I thought that was
I
you.
don't know.
Whoever's adjusting their chair, don't put the microphone by it.
That's
Kind of went into the bowels of the bat cave there.
Pow! Sing!
Pow! Boff! Wham! But anyway, I have never built a model of Batmobile, any of them. I've seen them. I've never bought one. I've never built one. And it looks like the original Batmobile will be the hardest one because you got all that red trim on it.
That's the hardest part of the kit.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Because they're all decals.
If I was going to manufacture a kit of the original Batmobile, I'll tell you what I would do. All of those pieces would be separate pieces so you could paint them before you put them on. I know. It'd make for some complex molding, but it would make it a lot more popular as a kit.
You remember the original one that Revell came out with, which was like 32nd scale?
I know the one you're talking about.
When that came out, and I was a kid, and there was a guy who had a store, and he said to me, "If you build them, I'll pay you to build them." Like, okay.
Every kid's dream.
I would build them, and he'd pay me like $10.
Well, now wait a minute. Depending on when this was, that was a lot of money.
Right, and he'd sell them for like $40. But I had to paint all of that red with a brush.
Oh, yeah.
On every one of them. And they came out good because I had a good brush, so I would just put enough paint and it would lay a bead down. Of course, my hands were better, my eyes were better. I could do it.
We were young.
Today, I don't think so. Yeah. But the one that Polar Lights makes, which is a great kit, it's all decals. And God forbid you break one of them while you're putting it on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That bad,
it took longer to do the decals than did do the whole kit. That's why the other ones, the other Batmobiles, are easier because all you do is you just paint them one color. That's it. There's no stripes.
Yeah, they're black.
Yeah. Paint it matte black or, semi-gloss black and you're done. Because the other ones really didn't shine.
Yeah, apparently, now, let's see. Aurora, the only Batmobiles I'm showing from the 60s are Aurora and Imai. I'm on ScaleMates flipping through. So you think this is an Aurora kit, or you think it was Revell?
Yeah.
It was Aurora.
No, it was Aurora.
Okay. And
it was an odd scale. It was like 32nd scale.
Yeah, it says 1/32. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious if that was...
But when Polar Lights came out, they did it in 24th.
Uh-huh. God, I wonder
It's a nice kit.
I wonder what one of those vintage kits costs now. Good luck finding one that isn't already made.
They're not that expensive because
Really?
they reissued the 32nd scale one.
Huh.
Polar Lights did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
When they did the Black Beauty, remember when they did the Black Beauty in 32nd scale? They reissued it. They did the Batmobile at the same time, so that kind of killed the prices of the original Aurora ones.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense because I know that whenever they put a kit back in production, my belief is the reason that it kills some of the value is to a collector the kit,
the original one is the one to have.
Yeah, because it holds its value because it was originally shot way back when. But to
the builder doesn't care; they want to build it.
Exactly. So, and builders probably make up half to 3/4 of the market.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, totally pulling that from thin air. But because I'm a builder, if you give me a vintage kit,
yeah, there's the box up there. You
yeah,
just put the
yeah,
box
just put it up
That's
there.
the one.
And
you notice on the box, there's no red trim on the back.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't look right. The front's different.
Well, that's just the artwork.
In the drawing, it's different, but in the kit, it was okay. It was right.
Yeah, that was just the artist, whoever he was, just didn't get it right. Actually,
there's no red trim on it.
There's also I see what he's doing, but he definitely has the dimensions off. It's taller and narrower in the artwork.
It was like a toy. It really was. It wasn't really, kit quality, so to speak.
Uh-huh. Well,
why does he have those big exhaust pipes sticking out of the back when he's got a jet engine?
That's for the atomic battery. That's ventilation for the atomic battery.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The jet exhaust wouldn't do anything to anybody following him.
Right, no.
Yes, Ken.
Well,
Why?
Picture? Did you ever see the picture of the Batmobile on the Los Angeles freeway with the parachutes out?
I don't think so.
No, but I did hear an interesting story about that.
Okay.
I think Max maybe might have told me about that. He's the guy who made the original car.
Yeah,
took it out.
Yep.
He took it out on the California highway to test drive it.
Yep.
And he took it up. He's going pretty fast with it, and a CHP pulled in behind him to pull him over. Well, apparently he hadn't worked on the brakes very well, so he couldn't
pull the chute.
So he pulled the chute, and all of a sudden there's this huge chute in front of this police car.
Two huge chutes.
Trying to slow the car down.
Yep.
I'm sure it must have been an interesting conversation to follow that.
Yeah.
Most likely in California, the Chippy probably knew that it's got to have something to do with the movie business.
He probably asked for an autograph.
Can I have my picture taken with the car?
Yeah, can I take it around the block?
But the one of the problems that these older models have, though, is that obviously in most cases the decals are shot, and in a lot of cases you really got to clean them well because they only may have some of the old PMA or release ages on them. But contrary to what a lot of us think, styrene does in fact break down. And you buy this vintage kit and you try to build it and you realize that the parts are way too brittle. And they weren't like that in '68 when it was injected, but nobody thought somebody'd be building it in 2020, And,
That's true.
Half-century old styrene. But it's sad
I didn't think that boat mark was brittle. It was actually very pliable.
What?
Oh.
What?
The Beaumark kit, that was made in '56.
No, Ken, that didn't always happen. You got to remember, every company had their own styrene stuff. I'm talking about some of it. Sometimes you get these kits that are.
Oh, okay.
I've had some of them that that Revell B25 that I did for the B25 build that I have on the shelf now. I must have broken 3 major parts on that, just applying a little pressure, and they just snapped clean. Now, my understanding is, as I recall from building it as a kid, the original was a little on the brittle side, but it wasn't that bad. But the kit was 40 years old. maybe 30 years old.
They just had a guy did an unboxing, a Johan unboxing, and he bought a turbine car kit on eBay and opened it up and it was purple.
John Hanley must have been running out of styrene or something.
Yeah, that's probably all he had at the time. Well, let's just put this in.
You see, you expect that from Aurora, because you know Abe Shikes wasn't throwing away any of that.
No, it scraped it up off the floor and threw it back in the machine.
And, you know, I know I've talked about this before, but it just is one of those stories that's just so cool, is that people were getting all these weird colored models because they tried all that stuff for girls' toys that didn't sell, so they were stuck all these, like, bright pinks. And Andy, the late great Andy Yanchus, actually had the bright pink Sikorsky helicopter that he wouldn't build it. He had still on the runners.
Well, look at some of that stuff in Phil's collection.
Oh yes.
You know, it's all different colors because that's what they ran. Did the test shot in.
Trey's saying that old Itallery kits are brittle as glass. You see, one of the problems I have when I talk about building an Itallery or kit, is that a lot of these kits have changed so much. You know, Hawk and Itallery and testers are you're like, oh.
Yeah, all connected at the hip.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you build a good Hawk kit or testers kit, it was probably originally an Itallery kit, because most of the Hawk kits are fairly basic. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't notice this. In fact, I used to think, it's actually one of the few models that's still at the old house in the Tardis. Excuse me, in the X-Tarbis. I have Bruce, Mystic Modeler Ships, sent me some models that he'd come into, and he had a Hawk P-47 Thunderbolt. And I used to love that kit as a kid because of the box art. It was a built-up model, but somebody stuck an electric motor in it, so the prop was spinning. And I was a little disappointed when I opened the kit and realized there's not a motor in here. And I was probably 9-10 years old when I got it, and it had the option of, it had two turtle decks, one for the bubble canopy and one for the Razorback canopy, the high top. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, and I had not even thought about that in 50 years until I got the one Bruce sent me, and I'm like, oh, you can do this one either way. And I remember that Hawk used photographs in their instruction sheet, which I always thought was so cool, going the extra mile. But then I kind of realized over time, and Mike Machat did a thing on the artwork and instruction sheets. We always get hung up on the box art, huh?
It's cheaper to take the photograph.
It's cheaper to take the photograph, and at first I thought that was like, oh, they're going the extra mile. Then I realized, no, they're being cheap, because having exploded artwork is much better for building the kit than just showing the pic. Hey, here, that's what it should look like when you're done. And
figure it out.
Yeah. One thing I liked about the Felix Stowe, and I've got to give Wingnut Wings credit. When I built the Felix Stowe, the instruction book was a book, and everything was color coded, and there was still a few things that were confusing because of the complexity of the model. But all things considered, you got to give old Peter Jackson credit. You could tell this was a passion project for him, because you just don't get a model or instructions that are that detailed unless you're dealing with somebody who really loves the subject matter. And
have you what?
Hmm?
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I know some of the viewers have built Wingnut Wings kits, and some of them will drive you a little bonkers because you want to put all that detail because they have it, and then you build the model and you can't see any of it, and it just kills you. You want to vacuum form one side of the fuselage in clear plastic, so you want to make a visible kit out of it, because by God, I want people to see that work I did.
Yes. Stuart just put a comment in saying he bought a Beverly Hillbillies truck kit. Online just now.
Oh.
There you go. See, we've stimulated the economy.
There you go. Oh, J.M. Hawk.
Have you been watching other YouTube videos lately?
Oh yeah.
A lot of the manufacturers now are using YouTube to introduce what they're going to be coming out with. Like Keeler, they have like a 45-minute YouTube video about the new management. They took over the company, what they're doing. Here's the new distribution center. Here's where we're making it, and here's the new kits we're coming out with. And I was like, wow, this is really detailed.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, let's face it, the internet has become the new marketing tool.
Yeah. You know, Salvino's, John just put up a video there about one of the new kits they're coming out with, which was fairly detailed, and you know, a lot of people are using it to get the message out now.
JM Hawk was talking about the SBD kit had the stars engraved on it from Hawk. Now this is basically an updated version of that same kit, which is still in production today, sold by testers or whatever name they're going under now. It's a really basic kit. There's really not much wrong with it. I could tell this is newer molding because it doesn't have it didn't have the engraved stars. I've got one around somewhere that does. But, but these kind of little model airplanes are the kind of kits I grew up on. And, I mean, you think about it, I put the landing gear on it, but if you'll notice, there's no vacant landing gear well for the wheels to go. It's a solid wing underneath, you know. But yeah. So it's like this wheel has no place to go.
Yeah, I remember kits like that.
Now the thing is, when I was a kid, the big, the 13-year-old kids, the big boys, they would go to the trouble like cutting that out, and painting the inside and everything, and adding a little detail to it. And I was like, wow, the master level modeling they're doing, and some of those guys, you look at an old Fine Scale Modeler magazine from 30 years ago, and you're like, these builds really aren't that great, because we've gotten so used to stuff now that it's just so incredible. But
I'm talking to Keeler the other night, and I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, I'm making brake lines on a lathe for this kit that I'm building." And I'm like, "You're doing what?" Yeah. He said, "Making brake lines." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Good night."
Yeah.
Why would he just use wire?
Because he's Jim Keeler.
That's not, to the level of which it can be done.
Okay. You have to understand, Ken, that Keeler is a genuine. I mean, his cars are in museums. He is a genuine world-class modeler, and all that implies. And I suppose if Jim could find a piece of wire that had the exact look that he was looking for, he'd probably use it. But if it's not, and Steve, correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, but if it's not exactly what he's looking for, he'll just make what he's looking for. Because he's Keeler, and he can do that.
I mean, he's got a whole little machine shop in his model building, area there. And it doesn't. He was making gauges, aluminum gauges for the dashboard on this car he was doing, and I'm like, really? Okay, well,
that's an obsession.
I mean, there was a video on here I watched one day that this guy made a model of a '76 Corvette that raced at Daytona. That was like an IMSA car. And this video was like an hour and a half long, and this guy just kept coming back, and he's making stuff out of brass and out of, metal and tubing and fiberglass and carbon fiber, and I'm watching this, and my head is spinning because I'm like, this is like building a real car. Well, and I mentioned it to Kerry. He goes, "Oh yeah, I know that guy," and I was like, "Of course you do."
Well, two comments. One, Chris made the comment, kits are kits, but a little detail goes a long way, and good paint. He's absolutely right. When you look at these kits, just because the human brain fills in a lot, and when you put in a little bit of detail, your brain sees more than is actually there, because it sort of suggests. And if
you go to all of the all the model shows, where people bring their builds, the two things that draw your attention, number one is always the paint job, and number two is the level of detail that they put, in the engine compartment or in the cockpit if it's a plane. And that's what separates them from just, a kit that you put together out of the box.
Yes, exactly. In fact, you could probably have the superior build of an airplane. You could have the superior build of a car. Door shut, hood down, trunk down, just sitting there, and it'd be flawless. And if the kit next to you has the hood up, the trunk up, and there's a lot of detail in there, it may not actually be as well made as yours, but it's going to be more impressive.
Yeah, because it's flashier.
When
detail to it.
When I kit bashed this GB, you guys will see it in a few seconds. I decided to go, okay, everybody talked about what if the GB had been made into a fighter plane. So I gave it a retractable undercarriage, and I was like, well, wait a minute, if the Army Air Corps is going to use it, they're going to be flying off a dirt strip. So I gave it a double-wheeled bogie on each landing gear, drilled out where the gear would track in the fuselage like the Wildcat, and the rest of it I just painted up in neutrality colors. That was really the only modification I made to the kit. Used some decals from some naval aircraft. But it is one of my favorite builds because I'm like, this actually looks like what it's supposed to be. You know, if they turn the GB into a fighter. I mean, this, you know, and one of the things that TD always pointed out is that all of his designs, as wild as they got, they were something that could be a real vehicle. They weren't like the Woozies or the cartoon cars. I mean, they were actually things. And some people have built real versions of what he made models of. If I could find myself an old German half track, I'd probably make Rommel's ride.
That'd be nice going to the Publix for, shopping.
Don't forget the schnitzel.
Just don't pull up in front of the synagogue during Hanukkah.
God, too soon.
Okay.
But the models that we get now, though, I've got boxes of parts that I never built because I knew they were never going to be seen. And but one of the things I have planned down the road, when we do the kit bash, I'm planning to have the Dornier that I'm going to kit bash all the panels off of it, because I'm making a propeller and a jet out of it, like a last ditch hybrid kind of thing. And also when I do the Rendezvous with Destiny builds, which is going to be the Betty bomber, Yamamoto's plane, and Rex Barber's P-38. I'm planning to do that canopy open and everything, so I'm going to try and really detail out the cockpit. I might even leave some panels off the engines. But the thing is, that's a double-edged sword. If you're going to leave an engine exposed, like on a World War II fighter or something, then you might want to start considering go ahead and finding some fine wire stretch sprue to start making like spark plug cables and stuff out of. Because as well detailed as a lot of these kit model engines are, they usually don't come with, at least on the smaller scales, 132nd and below, they don't usually come with all the wiring. Now that Tamiya Caterham that I built had all of it, which is why it's so detailed. That still probably stands next to the Felix. It's definitely the most detailed car model I've ever built. But it was also a 112 scale, so,
Well, to me, it's like the, Rolls Royce of model kits.
Yeah, and my thanks to John over at Scale Model Garage for sending me the character to go with it. He sent me that Tamiya race manager to go with it. That really, because I wanted to display it hood off, so having him kneel down next to it, tinkering on it, just really makes it looks really good on the shelf.
See, and things like that, if you entered that car in the show and you brought it with the guy, would make a big difference.
Yeah, if the thing, there's really very little glue on that kit. Most everything's screwed together.
Yeah.
The problem I have with entering my models is that they photograph well, they look good on a camera, but when you start looking, you start looking with a magnifying glass like the judges do. Oh, the blemishes are going to show. And
that's because, as we've had the discussion many times, the people that are doing kits to enter in the show are taking a long time to do them.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So the longer you take, you just do a little bit at a time, and, usually they come out really good.
Here is, I don't have the little figure with it, but here is the Caterham. And let me just screen. But everything you see in this car came with the kit. And I got to admit, it's pretty impressive. I mean, the steering box works and everything. Heck, I'm sure someone who really knows what they're doing could pretty easily make an RC out of it. Only one thing. I left the seat belts and the shoulder harnesses off deliberately because I just thought they mucked up the look. And
yeah, you could put a servo in the front for steering and put a little motor in the back to drive the wheels. Just take the engine out, put the hood on, put everything under there.
Well, that'd be cheating. That'd be all too easy.
That would be cheating. Yeah, because here's the really cool part. You take it up to wherever you drive these things. You take it up to the field, and then people come over and look at it, and then you pull the hood off. And they go, "Oh, wow!" See, that would just be that many more pieces you'd have to pick up after you hit something with it. Well, in theory, you try really hard not to hit anything with something like this. In theory.
The thing is I complain about how hard it is for me to paint and stuff, and here's this little teeny tiny 707 Diecast, and the paint on it's perfect on that tiny scale, and it doesn't appear to be a decal. And I'm kind of like, and I realize whoever did this probably has a mold and a machine and a stencil, but still I'm like, good Lord.
It's a tampo print. That's why.
It's a what?
It's a tampo print.
What's that?
It's like when they silk screen shirts.
Uh-huh.
It's the same kind of thing, and they put it up against the side of the plane, and just a thing goes by and puts the paint on.
Hmm.
Kind of like, probably very similar to what they do with model railroad stuff too.
Well,
that's how they do a lot of small die-cast cars, like Hot Wheel cars and Matchbox cars. That's how they get some of that detail on.
Well, the model railroading that I saw was they were using like a brass mold that they slammed the thing into and hit it with the paint one time, and but I had forgotten and realized how tight brass can fit. But that's a factory that's set up. It's those guys.
Yeah, everything is painted by machine.
Well, they were hand painting them, but they had, in other words, every single stage of the paint job had a dedicated mold, a dedicated artist, and a dedicated spray gun. So it was not like they were changing colors or anything. This guy was slapping in there, hit it with the yellow stripes, take it out, set it down, pick it up, and he just did this all day. And the other guy, I guess it was quick drying or something, or had a way to flash dry. Then the next guy'd slam it and shoot the numbers on it, pull it out, the white, and it's a factory, so it's not like we would do it. But it amazes, metal paint masks, exactly. It just amazed me that it works so well. And I tell you what, the thing is like, I was looking at this really beautiful B-52 at the last show. I guess it was the last Model Palooza. And I think I'd seen that kit before because you see some of these models making the circuit around the shows. But I was looking, the guy had this just perfect Southeast Asia paint, camo job on it. And I was just thinking to myself, I don't know if he's masking it or if he's just using a spray gun and a lot of practice or a stencil or what. But, that's a fairly complex 3-4 color pattern. And if you get one color, especially if it's the brown, if you get a little too much of it on there, it throws the whole thing off. And it's amazing how just a little paint out of a little too much of a certain color, the eye goes right to it. It's wrong. And it had a super fine feathered edge because even though it's a big model, when you reduce the size, the feathering is very small, but it was feathered. And I'm like, I have really got to start paying more attention to how to do that because that would have been real handy on this little Lynx. But I also want to do that as a just sort of a relaxing, quick build. I didn't want to get too down in the weeds on it because I love building. Well, I love building little kits like this that are easy to build and relatively easy to paint and not sweating the finery because it's going to spend the rest of the life on the shelf and it's relaxing to build. And then I take the kits out that I'm going to okay, this one's going to take me 3 months to build because I'm going to do every little thing to it. And I like to jockey back and forth. Generally speaking, I find cars, for the most part, are a little easier to do as a relaxing build because, generally speaking, you're dealing just one or two major colors over a fairly uniform, smooth surface. Depending on what you're building, of course. I actually found that dragster kind of easy to build. The parts fit very well. The whole frame was shot one color. You know, you take the extra mile on the engine because it's going to be exposed where people can see it. And it's kind of one of the neat things about it is that most of the stuff you're going to put on there is visible. So you're like, hey, you really enjoy doing a real good job on it because people will be able to see it. But once you get the frame painted and the body, is one color, it's all decals. Like, it was actually not a hard build despite its complex look.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I could do like the Garlet special, and what I could do is like that girl, was it Shirley Hempstead or whatever her name was at Aurora back in '71? No, the one that drove Keeler nuts when she was chopping the victim in half at the HIMS show.
Oh yeah.
What you could do is you make that little Garlet's one, put a little air pump on it, squeeze a little plunger, and the engine explodes and it breaks in half.
You can do that.
That's cruel. Watch. He probably wouldn't see the humor in that.
No.
There's a company out there that I haven't been able to get much information on. I think it's pronounced Zuki Maori or Zwiki Maori. They make these large scale, hyper detailed World War II airplanes. I mean, they have like internal fuel tanks that go inside the wing of the airplane that you will never see unless you're doing a cutaway. And they are expensive. I got some pictures. I was going to try and do a background on them, one of the little history videos. And they were like, well, the guy who did the models, like, I can't let you use the photos or copies of them because they actually belong to the company. I couldn't get up with anybody, couldn't find much about it, but I know that their kits are insanely detailed. And I think it was the HS-123. It was a German World War II ground attack twin engine airplane, or Henschel. It was Henschel 123, I think. Anyway, and I was thinking, if I got that kit, I would either have to do it as battle damaged or under maintenance. There is no way I could sleep at night if I put all that detail in there and you couldn't see it. But perfect for the person who wants to do a maintenance diorama type thing.
That would be a perfect kit to have a clear set of wings.
Yeah. Vac yourself a nice set of clear wings. Actually, funny you should mention that. I've got that clear B-17, which I plan to do, and TD sent me the Phantom Mustang. When I get to that, what I want to do is probably paint half the Mustang and leave the other half clear. But one wing, I'll probably leave the top clear and zinc chromate the inside of the bottom one so you can see. If you look at the bottom, you'll see the silver, and if you look inside, you'll see the zinc chromate. Because
that's a great kit.
Yeah, I have yet to, everybody says it is. I almost bought one a while back, but the box was open. I was afraid parts were missing, which is why I was on the clearance rack. But I also had that clear F-86 Sabre Dog from Hasegawa that was sent to me, and the B-29, Barry sent me some B-29 halves that he had, and I'm thinking maybe if depending on how detailed the interior is on the other kits, maybe put the full interior, because my dad was a WB-29 mechanic, the weather version, and maybe make that and then vac the other one and put that on there so I'd have like just a fuselage display with where you could see through and see the inside.
That'd be nice.
And but I tell you what, if I ever wind up with another one of those wingnut wings type kits, a lot of interior detail, I'm finding a way for you to be able to see that. I don't care if I have to make a crash diorama out of it.
That's too bad you couldn't make it so that you could cut part of the side out and have a removable panel.
Paul's pointing out it was HS-129. That was the twin engine job I was thinking of, not the 123. I think the 123 is a biplane. I'm currently trying to do something on Crown models. And by the way, guys, Paul's here from New Zealand. He sends me a lot of great information. He's become one of my unofficial researchers. But he has, and Steve, you and I talked about Crown before. Apparently, they're just, I know they did a lot of other people's stuff, but apparently they cut some of their own molds. It looks like, at least if you can trust what you see on ScaleMates, because they show some of their kits, they're the only one that ever made it. Of course, I realize ScaleMates is not perfect, although it's a critical resource if you want to do any history, any digging. But, oh, by the way, real quick point. Somebody had corrected me. This kit, the Airfix Whirlwind, Westland Whirlwind, it did come out in the 50s, but it's not this pressing. The molds were redone. This, I believe, is from a mold that was done in 78. So I was going to be awfully impressed if this had been a mid-50s mold, but it's not. But it's a neat little airplane, and if it hadn't been given some bad engines, who knows what it could have accomplished. But did you guys know that there was a bomber, an American experimental bomber called I believe it was the XB-38. What they did was they took a B-17 bomber and put 4, I believe it was Packard Merlins on it. So basically P-40 engines, right? And it looked cool. I should have got a picture of it. But it was actually faster than the regular B-17, but they didn't have the high altitude performance. Thing wound up catching on fire. The crew bailed out, and the Air Force was like, screw it, we need those engines for fighters anyway. They went on to other things, but I was thinking, it's a pity, you know. At least, but there is an airplane that, even though it was a one-off, that would make a great kit bash. Of course, you'd have to chop up 4 P-40s or P-51s, to make the cowlings. Well, I guess you could cut one up, shape it, and then just vacuum or resin it. But that would make an interesting kit to, because one of the things, there's one thing model lovers love. It's new, something that hasn't been made before, something they haven't built a dozen times. So, like, hey, here's one you haven't built. And,
Can somebody say RC-11 Rainbow?
Oh, yeah. There was a 12. Wasn't that the 12? RC-12? Well, the Rainbow, the fastest prop-driven, 4-engine, propeller-driven air. The fastest 4-engine piston propeller airplane ever. But the thing that killed the Rainbow was it just came out as jets were coming in. It was the pinnacle of piston engine technology. But piston engines, if you want to get right down to it, they were getting pushed beyond what they really could be expected to handle. And by the way, it's funny, we're talking about piston engines being over-designed. I'm sure a lot of you guys, especially baseball fans, are familiar with a famous baseball player named Roberto Clemente, who apparently died, I think it was 50 years ago, New Year's Eve. But he was trying to fly supplies, I think, to Guatemala in a DC-7 that coughed 2 engines, apparently. Actually, when this all came out, I read the accident report, and it was just everything that could go wrong did go wrong. There's a whole litany behind what happened there, but they were flying, and the DC-7 had those big turbo compound radials. And we're talking about airplanes with multiple superchargers, but when my dad was a B-29 mechanic, he was talking about how they always came back. It was nothing uncommon about them coming back from their weather reconnaissance flights / radar, radiation air sample detection spy flights, from coming back on 3 engines. And those engines were made out of magnesium. If you got a serious fire, the engine itself would burn. And if that happened, it was going to go right through that firewall and wing spar. And it was good night crazy. So the crews were always wearing parachutes, but it didn't really matter because out over the North Pacific, up there around Alaska, no one was going to rescue you before you froze to death. So those brave guys that did that stuff, but they put those in airliners after the war. And those engines never really had the kind of development they should have because of wartime necessity. And Mike Mashat covered this on one of his videos recently in excellent detail. But when the Rainbow came out, they were pushing piston engines even harder. And I think one of them did actually catch on fire and they had to get out of it. But it was an interesting, but the Rainbow, if the airframe had stayed around a little longer, it would have been a perfect airplane to put turboprops on. Now there's your kit bash. In fact,
oh yeah,
one of the kit bashes I'm thinking about doing is I have that little de Havilland, was it the Heron, the 4-engine job, and I'm trying to convert it into a turboprop, 4-engine turboprop for the kit bash. But anyway, I got started on it, and then I wound up putting the stuff in a bag when we moved, and now I get to try and find it. But the Rainbow would make a cool kit. But if I was going to make the Rainbow kit as a kit model to sell to airplane modelers, fine. But I'm going to have in their value-added feature a fictitious turboprop version with Rolls-Royce darts as an option, and put it in Pan Am colors or Eastern colors or something like that, and build it as a what-if airplane. Because I think one of the reasons people do so much kit bashing is they just run out of things to make. There is a 1/72 scale extra B38 resin, Craig was saying, and the B39 with B29 Allisons.
Hey Max, check your email. I just sent you a picture.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah. I'm going to my email. I'm using my phone. I'm going on the email to my phone.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. I got an email. What's this? A 3D printed DC7. DC6, DC7.
6, 7.
Yeah, much less prone to catch fire than the real one. Hey, there's an email here from TD, from Tom Daniel. Oh, you are not going to believe this. And this was sent a couple. Well, I don't know. This is from TD. Hey Max, don't recall mentioning before, but when I got that great kit from Monogram, the Phantom Mustang, I had in the back of my mind the thought of painting and detailing one half of the P-51 in either aluminum finish or ET European Theater with invasion stripes or some specific paint scheme for specific, such as butter, such as a food for thought. I got this at 6:08, so he sent this 2 hours ago. Great minds think alike.
There you go.
Show the picture that I sent you.
Okay, hold on. I got to download it from the phone and to the computer. Hold on. Let me go.
Let's just go into your computer.
Well, okay. Oh, yeah. Because that's what I'm live streaming on. Hey, if this live stream suddenly goes dead, we'll know that, Ken, that was a bad idea.
Yeah, my fault.
All your fault, Ken. All your fault.
Just blame it on me. Trying to make the show interesting. The guy that made this airplane that Max is about to show, I sent him an email because the basic shape, let me put it the other way, basic configuration of everything in this airplane is very similar to the Rainbow. So he could pull that back into his editor and he could create a Rainbow without too much effort.
I don't know if I would say without too much effort, but yes, it could be reverse engineered.
It took him 3 months to design this thing from scratch.
Yeah, he could use the basic aerodynamics. I mean, yeah, but he'd have to change a lot on it. But yeah, it could be done. Let me get the image.
It's a lot easier to modify something like that than to create a whole new one.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see here. Here it is, coming to you.
I have a couple of reasons I wanted to send you this picture. One, it's a really nice 3D model, but
it's
the
beautiful.
quality of it,
of course, I don't know how it flies.
It's got a full video of this thing. It flies really well.
That's pretty.
I'd put an A3X or something in it, just to help you out. But that is beautiful, and that's 3D printed.
Oh, that's nice.
And heck, I wouldn't be ashamed to put that on the table of a kit model show. That is beautiful. That really is.
That's pretty.
So Ken, update us on the P-38. Are you going to rebuild it or what?
Well, just as an aside, this thing here is retractable landing gear too.
Oh, I would hope so.
And all 4 of those motors are electric.
Yeah. I just sort of, that's kind of my default assumption these days with these things.
Well, he's also got. I was telling Steve about this. He's also got a jet, a twin jet that looks very similar to the Embraer. Or maybe it was you I was talking about.
You told me about
seriously
it.
Considering,
Yeah.
Okay. Seriously considering being that my next model, not this one here, but doing the Embraer look-alike.
Well, but you'll need the ducted fans for that, right?
Yeah, I was going to use the ones from the MU262.
Yeah, if they're the right size, go for it.
Mm-hmm. They are.
Yeah. They are good engine. I'll give them that.
If you're talking about Darkwood, if you're talking about the jet, yeah, it melted mid-flight because the batteries got too hot.
Godzilla breath.
Yeah.
It wasn't nuclear though.
But there's the Rainbow is similar enough in plan form to that airplane that you could probably get away with go back and
you should look up a picture of the Rainbow. I bet you a lot of people don't know what it looks like, and you can see what I'm talking about. How it's similar in a lot of respects.
Republic, a Rainbow. The it is the 12, the XF12. Yeah, there it is. Okay, let me find that looks like a good picture to use. Actually, I think this is an RC model.
Somebody did make one a long time ago, and it's difficult to make.
Item MA XF12, $329. Copy image. Paste, crop, file, save as. Okay, save. Okay, hold on. Hit that button. Oop, that's not the button I wanted. I want that button. Hit that button. Hit image. Browse. There it is. Here we go. And it becomes readily airport that the airplanes share a very similar plan. Of course, the Rainbow has a taller, rounder tail. The wings look a lot alike. And of course, it has the engine nacelles that extend out past after the wing. And you get rid of the stepped windshield. But yeah, you could, since he's got the hard engineering done, you could make modifications to probably use the same plan form as a guide for making the other one. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work.
I just think that is a really sexy looking airplane.
Lamber Crazy says maidening an RC plane equals removing canopy mask on a finished kit. Yeah, they are both sort of the acid test. The P-38 I have, which is the monogram kit that I already built, that's out in the garage in the glass. It came out decent, but when I peeled back the canopy glass, I had to use. I couldn't get it off. So I wound up using something sharp and wound up scratching the glass, and then some of it was opaque. I was like, because the P-38 has that real complex little X pattern in the side window and everything. Love my Rainbow vacuum. If we could engineer their interest, we could produce a 3D printed kits. Just need to get the CADs done. Yeah, that's like me saying I just need to lose weight. Yeah, the Rainbow is a beautiful airplane. The DC-6 and 7, the Douglas airplanes were always the most mundane looking, but mundane works. They did what they were supposed to do, and reliably. The 7 maybe not so much because of those compound radials, but the range, it's like.
Was that the only difference between the 6 and the 7? Was the engines?
No, there were other differences. The 7s, I believe the fuselage was longer. Tail might have been a little bigger or taller. I think the wings might have been a little. I mean, one was clearly an offshoot of the other, but there were some other differences to it. The 6 and the 7 were, I believe, both pressurized. The 4s weren't, but the 4s just soldiered on, and really so did the 6s. Mike Machat had repeated an old joke because the 6 had 3-bladed props with 4 engines, and they were very reliable. So they would say it was a great 4-engine, 3-bladed airplane. The DC-7 with that cantankerous compound radial had 4-bladed props, but it kept losing one, so it always coming back on 3. So they say it was a great 3-engine airplane with 4-bladed props. But
I remember, yeah, I remember that.
But it's but they were just pushing the technology too hard. If they'd had a couple more years and some better metallurgy, they probably could have made those turbo compound radials practical and reliable. But turboprops and jets were on the way, so what was the point? And when you get right down to it, people talk about how much fuel these jets burn, but when you're going a long way up at altitude, you're not in the air that long, so really it's a great compensator. One of the worst ways you can guesstimate the expense of operating a jet is when they talk about how many dollars per hour it costs to operate. Because you've got jets that do 500 miles an hour, and you got jets that do 300 miles an hour. Oh, this Citation's so much cheaper per hour to operate than that Lear. Yeah, but it's going a lot slower, so it's in the air a lot longer. So, you got to be careful about the math on that.
Yeah, if you're making lots of short trips, one would be better than the other.
Well, actually, short trips are where the turboprops rule, and pistons for that matter, too.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember the movie, I believe it was the movie Advise and Consent? Or The Best Man, where which one was it? It was one of those two where this senator gets on an airliner and he's taking a short hop up to DC from like Philadelphia or New York or somewhere, and he gets on the airplane and the vice president of the United States is on the plane because that's how they traveled back in the 50s. And he sits down next to the vice president. And he goes, what are you doing on the plane? So, I gave him a meeting at such and such. He goes, you're the vice president. You're running a commercial airline. He goes, well, I'm the vice president, not the president. He goes, you know what they say about being the vice president? They can't actually arrest you for it. Talking about what a, basically powerless, useless job it is, or it's not exactly a crime, But it shows his external shot of the DC-6 cranking up all of its engines. And I'm thinking, they're doing these Northeast shunt runs, LaGuardia, New York, Boston, DC, Philly, and a 4-engine prop liner that the engineers over there, every time, because you got to be a pilot to think this way, you see this beautiful footage of this old airplane cranking up, and all you can think about is there's some guy on there throwing levers and switches and magnetos and primers and everything else and these engines are hot because they just landed, they're doing a quick turn. So they haven't had a chance to cool down, so he's got to worry about vapor lock and everything else. And, I was just thinking, the busiest guy I know is all around engine airplanes, a flight engineer. In fact, in that movie, The Last Flight of Noah's Ark, they, with Elliot Gould and Genevieve, I don't know how you say, Bujold, he's taken her on a B-29 that they're using as a freighter, and to their credit, he's flying the airplane by himself, which is something you should not do. And he goes back to it and he shows him in the flight engineer section cranking up those engines. And I was like, well, they actually paid a little attention to detail there. And that's probably the last time a flying B-29 was used in a movie for a long time. That, by the way, turns out that airplane, in real life, that airplane was Fertile Myrtle, the one that dropped a lot of the test aircraft out over Edwards back in the day. And fortunately, she's in a museum now. But it's like, think about it. One day you're Fertile Myrtle, the drop plane for the Douglas 558, and all these exotic aircraft being, taking test pilots out to rule, to punch holes in the sky and advanced mankind. You're part of the great, test infrastructure. And the next thing you're doing a movie about someone stealing an airplane full of goats. Just reading a couple of comments here.
Yeah, they're commenting about that guy that got sucked into the engine.
I figured that was what happened. That was terrible. For those who don't know, Ramper was killed in Montgomery, Alabama. An American Eagle flight was, I don't know what was going on. No. Since that came up, I wasn't going to bring it up, but I will proffer you one thing. Most airlines have a policy. You pull up to the gate in an airline and you shut down usually the outboard engine, taxi up to the gate on number 1, and you sit there with it going until they plug in ground power, you get it switched over, and then you kill the engine. Personally, I've never been comfortable doing that because that engine's by the jet bridge. There's a lot of stuff in there. I'm always afraid some poor person's going to get sucked in there or a wheel chock or something. But it's kind of standard procedure at most airlines. You can start the APU, pull up, set the parking brake, and kill the engine right away, run off the APU until they plug in ground power. But that's burning fuel, and the APUs have limited start cycles on them. So the airlines tend to go for just letting the engine idle. I don't know what happened out there, but I've always been afraid of something like that happening. It's one of the things that makes me nervous. And there's a famous A6 footage where the guy got pulled in the intake of an A6. Fortunately, the intake of an A6 gets very narrow, and his head wouldn't fit through it. So even though a lot of his gear went through and fought it out the engine, he survived. And in fact, they had him on the ship's closed-circuit TV later with his head all bandaged up. But, he's a skinny guy with loose clothes, and Bernoulli took over. So,
and a little bit too close to an engine intake.
It's that is what happens when you work around anything. You just start getting, I hate to say complacent, but I guess that's what it is, because you're around it so much. After a while, you get desensitized to the danger. You tend to forget how dangerous. I wonder how many snake handlers, been killed by handling the wrong snake or whatever.
It's not like a flight deck is big.
No,
it's not. My brother-in-law was on the Enterprise. He was a green shirt. He was the guy that launched the aircraft off the catapult. And he said a buddy of his wasn't paying attention and walked right into a prop, a spinning prop.
It's easier to have in the thing. I think Glenn might have seen somebody get whacked by a broken arresting cable. Which apparently shearing cables on ships, arrestor cables on aircraft carriers, and you look at a ship, there's all kinds of winches and cables all over them, right? And apparently it's not uncommon when those things give way, and if you're not on your toes and get out of the way, it'll take a foot off or an arm or a head.
Dangerous place to be. They're not kidding when they say it's a very dangerous work environment.
Well, when you and I were touring that Victory ship in Tampa, was it the Victory America? I even commented, we were over there looking at all the winches and everything. It's like, man, you get a finger or a hand in there. I mean, you just take it off, no one ever know.
Real quick, too.
Because when you build the models, there are tiny little bits of round plastic that you go in place, and you go up and visit the ship and go, man, this thing's really big.
Yeah, those capstans were huge. And they used them for lifting cargo in. It was a cargo ship.
Yeah. The F8 was sometimes called the alligator for ingesting deck crew. Imagine the A7 probably had the same problem. Well, the F107 would have had that problem. It had the intakes up on top. And the Honda Jet has the engines up on top of the wing. So, well, guys, we're coming up on 9 o'clock. And the wife and I are going to have dinner and watch another episode of Wednesday. I have to admit, have you guys seen this show Wednesday from the Addams Family?
I saw the preview for it.
It's a lot of good dark humor, and I have to admit, everybody's you got to watch this, and I was like, oh, fine, all right. And we watched the first episode. Okay, yeah, it's Tim Burton, and there are one or two people we thought were miscast, but otherwise, it's really a good show. At least it has been so far. And I want to watch 1923. I haven't. I've just seen the trailers for it. That looks really good. It's got like a 9.5 on the, fan ratings. But anyway, trust me, if you watch Wednesday, this is not the sanitized sitcom of the 60s. It just uses that as the premise.
John Ashley Smith said, you could toss a brick down the intakes of an F-105 and it would exit the back as a puff of red brick dust and keep running.
Our shop teacher had been a vigilante mechanic, and he said that they were always hitting birds. He goes, no problem. It just spits out bird burgers.
Bird burgers.
And as long as they're not a flock of Canadian geese, the birds are striking back. Kamikaze goose.
Yeah, you don't want to get too many of them.
Oh my God. I just had a really bad idea for a diorama. Just put a headless goose on a diorama thing. Sully's goose. Too soon. Just no.
Say something like putting a flock of birds in front of a what was he flying?
Airbus A320.
An Airbus A320. Yeah, put a flock of geese in front of it.
Make one with two geese talking to each other, and one of them's got like a fan blade stuck in his shoulder. He's like, I just closed my eyes and prayed and wound up with this new jewelry. I'm jinxing myself here.
Max, you need to sign off and go watch Wednesday.
Yeah. Well, guys, I want to thank you for coming out to join me. I'm going to loop the intro here for anybody that would like to let you guys chat with each other for a while. And I will kill the microphone in here in just a second. Does anybody have any parting shots or anything they want to say before I go? And by the way, if I forget, is it? Happy 2023. Happy New Year, folks. Ken, Happy New Year. Steve, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, you and Monica.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And the cat.
And the cat.
And the cat. Can't forget the cat. She'll get very upset if you forget her.
So I have noticed.
Even the cat.
She sends a memo through, she's got some serious catitude. The Christmas cat sends a memo up through channels, and I'm in hot water.
Max, you're not going to hear that. You're going to hear that for months.
What's that?
Leaving Steve out of your 2020 video.
I deserve it. Steve, I want you to know I was trying to find the picture. I didn't forget. I just couldn't find. I should have just had you email me one.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm going to be hearing about that until 2025.
Feel like the world's a tuxedo and I'm a pair of brown shoes.
Yeah, they use frozen chickens for testing bird strikes on engines.
Well, guys, I'm going to cut the mic. I'm going to let everybody go. Guys, take care of yourselves. And as always, model on.
Model on.
Model on. Climax.
Good night, John Boy.